Iker and Derek, welcome to Begrudging Book Club.
Ziggy, stop. Still getting my life together.
All right, let me get the cards shuffled.
How are we doing this Wednesday, hump day? And Derek, you were here first, I think, from what I'm seeing. I'm really terrible and not professional with keeping up because I have all these screens, but I'm going to try my best here. All right. You got, oh yeah, we're pulling from the Begrudgingly Grateful deck. Oh, there we go. Now I can see. You got Boundaries.
No is a boundary, not a biography.
Keep it short. Not much explanation for that one.
All right, Iker,
You are up next with Hydrate.
water won't fix your life, but it keeps the meat soup shiny. Clink your glass despite.
Gotta hydrate. All right. So that's everybody for right now. Ooh. Let's see. Does anybody want to call out something? Ooh, welcome, DP. We're still getting our lives together here, and apparently my background. So I think we're gonna start with, ooh, Crystal, hi. So we'll get back to that. Ooh, DP, you have move, stand up like you mean it, reclaim verticality as protest. Always just get up and move around for a little bit. It helps the vibes in the body. And then we have Crystal. Crystal, you have reframe. Perspective is just revenge in disguise. Tilt accordingly. Okay, back to picking Poe. I think last time we did Shadow, a parable about the plague party. This time, I think we'll do Silence, a fable. And that is page 94. Oh, we've got a dweller. All right. Silence, a fable. The mountain pinnacles slumber, valleys, crags, and caves are silent. and Dweller before we get going. Ew, this is probably a good one for you. Chaos mitigation. Validate, then vanish. Smoke bomb optional. Kind of like no. Just say what you gotta say and move on. You don't really owe anybody much more than that. All right. Listen to me, said the demon, as he placed his hand upon my head. The region of which I speak is a dreary region in Libya, by the borders of the river Zaire, and there's not quiet there, nor silence. Mac, welcome. The begrudging tarot reading. I guess it is very tarot cult adjacent. Those are the vibes we like to keep around here. Mac, your card, your thought for today. Reframe, rewrite doom in third person, add better dialogue. It is always fun to rewrite an argument or anything like that and see how it could have gone better for you, worse for them, or the opposite. We are reading Silence a Fable by Edgar Allan Poe. Maybe that'll give you your task for today. And if you do happen to have something by Poe that you'd like to be brought up during book club, put it in the chat and I'll see if we can get there. Or after we read this, we'll go back to the table of contents. All right, back to it. The waters of the river have a saffron and sickly hue, and they flow not onwards to the sea, but palpitate forever and forever beneath the red eye of the sun, with only a tumultuous and convulsive motion. Ooh, the black cat. Welcome, Zombie. Oh. Sombre, you got hydrate. Spite still counts as electrolytes. Sip faster when annoyed. For many miles on either side of the river's oozy bed is a pale desert of gigantic water lilies. They sigh unto the other, one unto the other in that solitude, and stretch towards the heaven in their long, ghastly necks, and nod to and fro their everlasting heads. And there is an indistinct murmur which cometh out from among them, like the rushing of subterrene water. And they sigh, one unto the other. But there is a boundary to their realm, the boundary of the dark, horrible, lofty forest. There, like the waves about the Hebrides, the low underwood is agitated continually. But there is no wind throughout the heaven, and the tall primeval trees rock eternally hither and thither with a crashing and mighty sound. And from their high summits, one by one, drop everlasting dews, and at the roots, strange poisonous flowers lie writhing in perturbed slumber. And overhead, with a rustling and loud noise, the gray clouds rush westwardly forever, until they roll, a cataract, over the fiery wall of the horizon. But there is no wind throughout the heaven, and by the shores of the river Zaire there is neither quiet nor silence. It was night, and the rain fell, and falling, it was rain. But having fallen, it was blood. And I stood in the morass among the tall and the rain, and
and the rain fell upon my head. And the lilies sighed one into the other in the solemnity of their desolation. Solemnity of their desolation. I like that one. And all at once, the moon arose through the thin, ghastly mist and was crimson in color, and mine eyes fell upon a huge gray rock which stood by the shore of the river and was lighted by the light of the moon, and the rock was gray and ghastly and tall, and the rock was gray. Upon its front were characters engraven in the stone, and I walked through the morass of water lilies until I came close into the shore, that I might read the characters upon the stone. But I could not decipher them. And I was going back into the morass when the moon shone with a fuller red, and I turned and looked again upon the rock and upon the characters, and the characters were desolation. And I looked upwards, and there stood a man upon the summit of the rock, and I hid myself among the water lilies, that I might discover the actions of the man. And the man was tall and stately in form, and was wrapped up from his shoulders to his feet in the toga of old Rome. And the outlines of his figure were indistinct, but his features were the features of a deity. For the mantle of the night, and of the mist, and of the moon, and of the dew had uncovered the features of his face. And his brow was lofty with thought, and his eye wild with care. Hebrides. Okay. Ooh, that's where he is. I knew he was somewhere around there. Thank you. See, that's what we do here. We learn in book club. Okay, so we've got that on the screen. I wonder. There we go. Okay, back to the reading. Yeah, that's what I had thought. But he's there now. Okay. I read his stuff. You guys should definitely check him out. He's a horror writer, so it's kind of in book club's wheelhouse. Um, and the man sat upon the rock, and leaned his head upon his hand, and looked out upon the desolation. He looked down into the low, unquiet shrubbery, and up into the tall primeval trees, and up higher at the rustling heaven, and into the crimson moon. And I lay close within the shelter of the lilies, and observed the actions of the man, and the man trembled in the solitude. But the night waned, and he sat upon the rock. And the man turned his attention from the heaven, and looked out upon the dreary river Zaire, and upon the yellow ghastly waters, and upon the pale legions of the water lilies. And the man listened to the sighs of the water lilies, and to the murmur that came up from among them. And I lay close within my covert and obscured the actions of the man. And the man trembled in the solitude. But the night waned, and he sat upon the rock. Then I went down into the recesses of the morass, and waded afar in among the wilderness of the lilies, and called upon the hippopotami, which dwelt among the fens in the recesses of the morass. And the hippopotami heard my call, and came, with the behemoth, unto the foot of the rock, and roared loudly and fearfully beneath the moon. And I lay close within my covert, and observed the actions of the man. And the man trembled in solitude. But the night waned, and he sat upon the rock. Oh, yay, that's what we kind of do. This one, it's like a whole anthology. So it has stuff you know, stuff you didn't. Um, Last time I had not read Imp of the Perverse, and Fiona was there. So I was like, oh, Imp of the Perverse, this would be perfect for you. And it was not the Perverse, that Substack. likes to go with. But it was fun. Then I cursed the elements with the curse of tumult, and a frightful tempest gathered in the heaven where before there had been no wind, and the heaven became livid with the violence of the tempest, and the rain beat upon the head of the man, and the floods of the river came down, and the river was tormented into foam, and the water lilies shrieked within their beds, and the forest crumbled before the wind, and the thunder rolled, and the lightning fell, and the rock rocked to its foundation. And I lay close within my covert and observed the actions of the man. And the man trembled in solitude. But the night waned, and he sat upon the rock. Then I grew angry and cursed with the curse of silence, the river and the lilies and the wind and the forest and the heaven and the thunder and the sighs of the water lilies. And they became accursed and were still. And the moon eased to totter up its pathway to heaven, and the thunder died away, and the lightning did not flash, and the clouds hung motionless, and the waters sunk to their level and remained, and the trees ceased to rock, and the water lilies sighed no more, and the murmur was heard no longer from among them, nor any shadow of sound throughout the vast, illimitable desert. And I looked upon the characters of the rock, and they were changed. And the characters were silence. And mine eyes fell upon the countenance of the man, and his countenance was wan with terror. And, hurriedly, he raised his head from his hand, and stood forth upon the rock and listened. But there was no voice throughout the vast, illimitable desert, and the characters upon the rock were silence. And the man shuddered, and turned his face away, and fled afar off, in haste, so that I beheld him no more. Now there are fine tales in the volumes of the Magi, in the iron-bound, melancholy volumes of the Magi. Therein, I say, are glorious histories of the heaven, and of the earth, and of the mighty sea, and of the genii that ruled over the sea, and the earth, and the lofty heaven. And there was much lore, too, in the sayings which were said by the Sibyls, and holy, holy things were heard of old by the dim leaves that trembled around Dodona. But Allah liveth, that fable which the demon told me as he sat by my side in the shadow of the tomb, I hold to be the most wonderful of all. And as the demon made an end of his story, he fell back within the cavity of the tomb and laughed. And I could not laugh with the demon, and he cursed me because I could not laugh. And the lynx which dwelleth forever in the tomb came out therefrom, and lay down at the feet of the demon, and looked at him steadily in the face. Rebecca, welcome. We just finished Silence, a Fable. But let's get you your card. You've got Soothe. Quiet is a weapon. Use responsibly. Reload with breath. Ah, yes, I've definitely heard of them, but I have not read them, so that knowledge eludes me. Yes, good. I'll get you your screenshot and you can carry it with you. Okay. So let's do. Max said he likes the black cat. It's 6 pages. That's not too bad. We could do that one. Rebecca, do you have a favorite poem or something shorter that we can read? Let me see. I know a bunch of these ones, you can kind of tell if it only has 1 or 2 pages, it's shorter. I was thinking maybe Annabelle Lee. Oh, Fiona. Hi. We did read Annabelle Lee one of the other times, but I feel like it's one of those oldies but goodies. Oh, I'm losing my background slowly. Oh, you're here. You're good, Fiona. Good deal. All right. Well, I think my background will survive like that for now. We will get Fiona her card. Oh, this one will be good for you. You got move. Spin slowly until dizziness resembles clarity. Stop when the metaphor lands. All right, let's get back to this. Maybe if I scooch this and then I scooch this, I think we'll be good. All right, we'll just go with the black cat, page 204. Oh, let's see. I didn't pay attention to my book. I'm sorry. Thank you. Last week, I was so embarrassed with my busted naked nails, but I was having technical difficulties and it didn't happen. All right. What if I just hold the book and say fuck it? All right. The black cat. For most of the wild, yet homely narrative which I am about to pen, I neither expect nor solicit belief. Mad indeed, I would be to expect it, in a case where my very senses reject their own evidence. Oh, I guess that is true. Thanks for the trigger warning. I don't do well with reminding people of those kinds of things. So that's what we've got others for. I really don't have. Do, do, do. Okay. Mad indeed I would be to expect it, in a case where my very senses reject their own evidence. Yet, mad I am not, and very surely do I not dream. But tomorrow I die. And today I would unburthen my soul. My immediate purpose is to place before the world, plainly, succinctly, and without comment, a series of mere household events. And their consequences, these events have terrified, have tortured, have destroyed me. Yet, I will not attempt to expound them. There we go. To me, they have presented little but horror, and to many, they will seem less terrible than Baroque's. Hereafter, perhaps, some intellect may be found which will reduce my phantasm to the commonplace, and some intellect more calm, more logical, and far less excitable than my own, which will perceive, in the circumstances I detail with awe, nothing more than an ordinary succession of very natural causes and effects. From my infancy, I was noted for the docility and humanity of my disposition. My tenderness of heart was even so conspicuous as to make jest of my companions. Yes, less terrible than Baroque. Um, my heart was even so conspicuous as to make me the jest of my companions. I was particularly fond of animals and was indulged by my parents with a great variety of pets. With these, I spent most of my time and never was so happy as when feeding and caressing them. This peculiarity I lost my place. This peculiarity of character grew with my growth, and in my manhood, I derived from it one of my principal sources of pleasure. To those who have cherished an affection for a faithful and sagacious dog, I heed hardly be at the trouble of explaining the nature or the intensity of the gratification thus derivable. There is something in the unselfish and self sacrificing love of a brute which goes directly to the heart of him who has had the frequent occasion to test the paltry friendship and gossamer fidelity of mere man. I married early and was happy to find my wife a disposition not uncongenial with my own. Observing my partiality for domestic pets, she lost no opportunity of procuring those of the most agreeable kind. We had birds, goldfish, a fine dog, rabbits, a small monkey, and a cat. Um, there we go. This latter was remarkably large and beautiful. Dogs are brutes. I talked about it earlier. They're brutes, they're not shitheads, but they're somehow lovable. It's that dedication, I guess. The latter was a remarkably large and beautiful animal, entirely black and sagacious to an astonishing degree. And speaking of her intelligence, my wife, who at heart was not a little tinctured with superstition, made frequent allusion to the ancient popular notion, which regarded all black cats as witches in disguise. Not that she was ever serious upon this point, and I mention the matter at all for no better reason than that it happens just now to be remembered. Pluto, this was the cat's name, was my favorite pet and playmate. I alone fed him, and he attended me wherever I went about the house. It was even with difficulty that I could prevent him from following me through the streets. Our friendship lasted. Oh, we've got to get this situation under control. Our friendship lasted in this manner for several years, during which my general temperament and character, through the instrumentality of the fiend intemperance, had, I blush to confess it, experienced a radical alteration for the worse. I grew, day by day, more moody, more irritable, more regardless of the feelings of others. I suffered myself to to use intemperate language to my wife. At length, I even offered her personal violence. Isn't that? We're gonna blame it on the cat that you're a shithead. Okay. My pets, of course, were made to feel the change in my disposition. I not only neglected, but ill used them. For Pluto, however, I still retained sufficient regard to restrain me from maltreating him, as I made no scruple of maltreating the rabbits, the monkey, or even the dog, when by accident or through affection they came in my way. But my disease grew upon me. For what disease is like alcohol? And at length, even Pluto, who was now becoming old and consequently somewhat peevish, even Pluto began to experience the effects of my ill temper. One night, returning home, much intoxicated from one of my haunts about town, I fancied that the cat avoided my presence. I seized him, when, in his fright at my violence, he inflicted a slight wound upon my hand with his teeth. The fury of a demon instantly possessed me. I knew myself no longer. My original soul seemed, at once, to take its flight from my body, and a more than fiendish malevolence, gin nurtured, thrilled every fiber of my frame. I took from my waistcoat pocket a penknife, opened it, grasped the poor beast by the throat, and deliberately cut out one of its eyes from the socket. I blush, I burn, I shudder, while I pen the damnable atrocity. When reason returned with the morning, when I had slept off the fumes of the night's debauch, I experienced a sentiment, half of horror, half of remorse, for the crime of which I had been guilty. But it was at best a feeble and equivocal feeling, and the soul remained untouched. I again plunged into excess, and soon drowned in wine all the memory of the deed. In the meantime, the cat slowly recovered. The socket of the lost eye presented, it is true, a frightful appearance, but he no longer appeared to suffer any pain. He went about the house as usual, but, as might be expected, fled in extreme terror at my approach. I had so much of my old heart left as to be, at first, grieved by this evident dislike on the part of a creature which had once so loved me. But this feeling soon gave place to irritation. And then came, as if to my final and irrevocable overthrow, the spirit of perverseness. Here we go again with the perverse. Of this spirit, philosophy takes no account. Phrenology finds no place for it among the organs. Yet I am not more sure than my soul lives than I am that perverseness is one of the most primitive impulses of the human heart, one of the indivisible primary faculties or sentiments which gave the direction to the character of man. Who has not, 100 times, found himself committing a vile or silly action for no other reason than because he knows he should not? Have we not a perpetual inclination, in the teeth of our best judgment, to violate that which is law, merely because we understand it to be such? This is the spirit of perverseness. I say, came to my final overthrow. It was this unfathomable longing of the soul to vex itself, to offer violence to its own nature, to do wrong for wrong's sake only, that urged me to continue and finally consummate the injury I had inflicted upon the unoffending brute. One morning, in cool blood, I slipped a noose about its neck and hung it to the brute. Or wait, no, and hung it to the limb of a tree. Hung it with the tears streaming from my eyes and with the bitterest remorse at my heart. Hung it because I knew that it had loved me and because it had given me no reason of offense. Hung it because I knew that in doing so, I was committing a deadly sin that would so jeopardize my immortal soul as to place it, if such a thing were possible, even beyond the reach of the infinite mercy of the most merciful and most terrible God. So, I'm an asshole. I might as well be such an asshole. I get a front row seat. I think that's what we're picking up, right, guys? Let me get a drink. I will say he's not wrong, though. Sometimes being a dick for the sake of being a dick does call. On the night, but never a cat. On the night of the day on which this cruel deed was done, I was aroused from sleep by the cry of fire. The curtains of my bed were in flames. The whole house was blazing. It was with great difficulty that my wife, a servant, and myself made our escape from the conflagration. The destruction was complete. My entire worldly wealth was swallowed up, and I resigned thenceforth to despair. I am above the weakness seeking to establish a sequence of cause and effect between a disaster and the atrocity, but I am detailing a chain of facts and wish not to leave even a possible link imperfect. On the day succeeding the fire, I visited the ruins. The walls, which with one exception had fallen in. This exception was found in a compartment wall, not very thick, which stood about the middle of the house, and against which had rested the head of my bed. The plastering here in great measure resisted the action of the fire, a fact which I attributed to its having been recently spread. About this wall a dense crowd were collected, and many persons seemed to be examining a particular portion of it with very minute and eager attention. The word strange, singular, and other similar expressions excited my curiosity. I approached and saw, as if graven has relief, upon the white surface, the figure of a gigantic cat. The impression was given with an accuracy truly marvelous. There'd been a rope around the animal's neck. When I first beheld this apparition, for I could scarcely regard it as less, my wonder and my terror were extreme. But at length the reflection came to my aid. The cat, I remembered, had been hung in a garden adjacent to the house. Upon the alarm of Upon the alarm of fire, this garden had been immediately filled by the crowd, by some of whom the animal must have been cut from the tree and thrown through an open window into my chamber. This had possibly been done with the view of arousing me from sleep. The falling of other walls had compressed the victim of my cruelty into the substance of the freshly spread plaster, the lime of which, with the flames and the ammonia from the carcass, had then accomplished the portraiture as I saw it. Ugh. Although I thus readily accounted to my reason, if not altogether to my conscience, for the startling fact just detailed, it did not less fail to make a deep impression upon my fancy. For months, I could not rid myself of the phantasm of the cat, and during this period there came back into my spirit a half sentiment that seemed, but was not, remorse. Gosh. I went so far as to regret the loss of the animal, and to look about me among the vile haunts which I now habitually frequented, for another pet of the same species and of somewhat similar appearance with which to supply its place. He can't even go to the shelter. Or well, who knows? And back then there's no shelter, but really, I'm gonna just get drunk and wander the streets and find me a new cat. That's gonna solve all my problems. Not stop being a dick. One night, as I sat, half stupefied, in a den of more than infamy, ooh-wee, my attention was suddenly drawn to some black object, reposing upon the head of one of the immense hogsheads of gin or of rum, which constituted the chief furniture of the apartment. I had been looking steadily at the top of the hogshead for some minutes, and what now caused me surprise was the fact that I had not sooner perceived the object thereupon. I had approached it and touched it with my hand. It was a black cat, a very large one, fully as large as Pluto, and closely resembling him in every respect but one. Pluto had not a white hair upon any portion of his body, but this cat had a large one. Had a large, although indefinitely, splotch of white, covering nearly the whole region of his breast. Upon my touching him, he immediately arose, purred loudly, and rubbed against my hand, and appeared delighted with my notice. This, then, was the very creature of which I was in search. I at once offered to purchase it of the landlord, but this person made no claims of it, knew nothing of it, had never seen it before. I continued my caress, and when I prepared to go home, the animal evinced a disposition to accompany me. I permitted it to do so, occasionally stooping and patting it as I proceeded. When it reached the house, it domesticated itself at once, and became immediately a great favorite with my wife. For my own part, I soon found a dislike to it arising within me. This was just the reverse of what I had anticipated. But I know not how or why it was. Its evident fondness for myself rather disgusted and annoyed. By slow degrees, these feelings of disgust and annoyance rose into the bitterness of hatred. I avoided the creature, a certain sense of shame, and the remembrance of my former deed of cruelty, preventing me from physically abusing it. I did not, for some weeks, strike or otherwise violently ill use it, but gradually, very gradually, I came to look upon it with unutterable loathing, and to flee silently from its odious presence, as from the breath of a pestilence. What added, no doubt, to my hatred of the beast was the discovery, on the morning after I brought it home, that, like Pluto, it had also been deprived of one of its eyes. This circumstance, however, only endeared it to my wife, who, as I have already said, possessed, in a high degree, that humanity of feeling which had once been my distinguishing trait, and the source of many my simplest and purest pleasures. All. With my aversion to this cat, however, its partiality for myself seemed to increase. It followed my footsteps with a pertinacity which would be difficult to make the reader comprehend. Wherever I sat, It would crouch beneath my chair or spring upon my knees, covering me with its loathsome caress. If I arose to walk, it would get between my feet and thus nearly throw me down, or, fastening its long and sharp claws in my dress chamber in this manner to my breast. At such times, although I longed to destroy it with a blow, I was yet withheld from doing so, partly by a memory of my former crime, but chiefly, let me confess this at once, by absolute dread of the beast. This dread was not exactly a dread of physical evil, and yet I should be at a loss how otherwise to define it. I am almost ashamed to own, yes, even in this felon's cell, I am almost ashamed to own that the terror and horror with which the animal inspired me had been heightened by one of the merest chimeras it would be possible to conceive. My wife had called my attention, more than once, to the character of the mark of white hair, of which I have spoken, and which constituted the sole visible difference between the strange beast and the one I had destroyed. The reader will remember that this mark, although large, had been originally very indefinite, but now, by slow degrees, degrees nearly imperceptible, and for which a long time my reason struggled to reject as fanciful, it had at length assumed a rigorous distinctness of outline. It was now the representation of an object that I had shuddered to name, and for this, above all, I loathed and dreaded, and would have rid myself of the monster had I dared. It was now, I say, the image of a hideous, of a ghastly thing, of the gallows. Oh, mournful and terrible engine of horror and crime, of agony and of death. And now I was indeed wretched beyond wretchedness of mere humanity, and a brute beast, whose fellow I had contemptuously destroyed, a brute beast to work out for me a man, fashioned in the image of the high God, so much of insufferable woe. Alas, neither by day nor by night I knew the blessing of rest any more. Good. You killed a cat. The former creature left me no moment alone. The creature left me no moment alone. And in the latter, I started hourly from dreams of unutterable fear to find the hot breath of that thing upon my face and its vast weight at an incarnate nightmare that I had no power to shake off, incumbent eternally upon my heart. Beneath the pressure of torments such as those, the feeble remnant, uh, the feeble remnant of the good within me succumbed. Evil thoughts became my sole intimates, the darkest and most evil of thoughts. The moodiness of my usual temper increased to hatred of all things and of all mankind, while, from the sudden, frequent, and ungovernable outbursts of a fury to which I now blindly abandoned myself, my uncomplaining wife, alas, was the most usual and the most patient of sufferers. I knew it. One day, she accompanied me upon some household errand into the cellar of the old building which our poverty compelled us to inhabit. The cat followed me down the steep stairs and, nearly throwing me headlong, exasperated me to madness. Uplifting an axe, and forgetting, in my wrath, the childish dread which had hitherto stayed in my hand, I aimed a blow at the animal which, of course, would have proved instantly fatal had it descended as I'd wished. But this blow was arrested by the hand of my wife. Goaded by the interference into a rage more than demoniacal, I withdrew my arm from her grasp and buried the axe in her brain. She fell dead upon the spot without a groan. That will solve your problem. This hideous murder accomplished, I set myself forthwith, and with entire deliberation, to the task of concealing the body. I knew that I could not remove it from the house, either by day or by night, without the risk of being observed by the neighbors. Many projects entered my mind. At one period, I thought of cutting the corpse into minute fragments and destroying them by fire. At another, I resolved to dig a grave in the floor of the cellar. Again, I deliberated about casting it in the well in the yard, about packing it in a box as if merchandise, with the usual arrangements, and so getting a porter to take it from the house. Finally, I hit upon what I considered a far better expedient than either of these. I determined to wall it up in the cellar, as the monks of the Middle Age are recorded to have walled up their victims. Well, isn't that a theme? We've got floorboards, or you can brick up your cellar. Yeah. And all of this just to convince you that he's totally normal. He's guilty but innocent. Like, this is a normal chain of events that led to the only thing that could possibly happen. Like, nothing else could possibly have happened with this. A good reason to avoid sellers, yes, or a good reason to have one. Really depends. All right, let's see. For a purpose such as the seller was, he sees it as a service. For a purpose such as the cellar was admirably adapted. Its walls were loosely constructed and had lately been plastered throughout with a rough plaster, which the dampness of the atmosphere had prevented from hardening. Moreover, in one of the walls was a projection, caused by a false chimney or fireplace that had been filled, or walled up and made to resemble the rest of the cellar. I made no doubt that I could readily displace the bricks at this point, insert the corpse, and wall the whole up as before so that no eye could detect anything suspicious. And in calculation, I was not deceived. By means of a crowbar, I easily dislodged the bricks, and having carefully deposited the body against the inner wall, I propped it in that position, while, with little trouble, I relaid the whole structure as it originally stood. Having procured the mortar, sand, and hair, with every possible precaution, I prepared a plaster which could not be distinguished from the old, and with this I very carefully went over the new brickwork. When I'd finished, I felt satisfied that all was right. The wall did not present the slightest appearance of having been disturbed. The rubbish on the floor was picked up with the minutest care. I looked around triumphantly and said to myself, "Here at last. Then my labor has not been in vain." Well, you're telling it from a cell, so I think you might be wrong about that one. My next step was to look for the beast which had been the cause of so much wretchedness. Yes, for I had at length firmly resolved to put it to death. Had I been able to meet with it at the moment, there could have been no doubt of its fate. But it appeared that the crafty animal had been alarmed at the violence of my previous anger, and forbode to present itself in my present mood. It is impossible to describe or to imagine the blissful sense of relief which the absence of the detested creature occasioned in my bosom. It did not make its appearance during the night, and thus, for one night at least, since its introduction into the house, I soundly and tranquilly slept. I slept, even with the burden of murder upon my soul. The second and third day passed, and still my tormentor came not. Once again, I breathed as a free man. The monster, in terror, had fled the premises forever. I should behold it no more. No, you're fine. I enjoy that. I love Poe. I actually grew up not too far from Richmond, so I've gone to the museums and I've done all the creepy Poe stuff. And it helps keep engagement and we all like learning something new. That's why we're here. I guess except for Fiona. Fiona's listening, so I guess I should be reading these things so she can get it too. But once we're done, we'll do a little recap because it is, I mean, a lot of his stuff is, but we'll talk about the guilt and the perverseness. Oh no, you're good, Fiona. I was just saying, never mind. I forgot that like this is behind what I can see. Um, yes, the monster in terror had fled the premises forever. I should behold it no more. My happiness was supreme. The guilt of my dark deed disturbed me but little. Some few inquiries had been made, but these had been readily answered. Even as a search had been instituted, but of course nothing was to be discovered. I looked upon my future felicity as secured. Upon the fourth day of the assassination, at least he's now giving it a bit more of the like credit that it deserves. An assassination, it has a bit more, yeah. A party of the police came, that's why, very unexpectedly into the house and proceeded again to make rigorous investigation of the premises. Secure, however, in the inscrutability of my place of concealment, I felt no embarrassment whatsoever. The officers bade me accompany them in their search. They left no nook or corner unexplored. At length, for the third or fourth time, they descended into the cellar. I quivered not in a muscle. My heart beat calmly as that of one who slumbers in innocence. I walked the cellar from end to end. I folded my arms upon my bosom and roamed easily to and fro. The police were thoroughly satisfied and prepared to depart. Oh, and this is where it's probably going to take a turn, usually does. And I think we're at about 6 pages. The glee at my heart was too strong to be restrained. Oh, Fiona, it's your favorite part. I burned to save but one word by way of triumph and to render doubtly sure their assurance of my guiltlessness. Not certain anyone could see what I'm saying. Gentlemen, I said at last, as the party ascended the steps, I delight to have allayed your suspicions. I wish you all health and a little more courtesy. By the by, gentlemen, this is a very well constructed house. In the rabid desire to say something easily, I scarcely knew what I uttered at all. May I say an excellently well constructed house? These walls. Are you going, gentlemen? These walls solidly put together. And here, Through the mere frenzy of bravado, I rapped heavily with a cane which I held in my hand upon that very. I know Wendy's sleeping because it's like 3 a.m. where she is in New Zealand, but I'm not sure where Tara is. Frenzy of bravado, I rapped heavily with a cane which I held in my hand upon that very portion of the brickwork behind which stood the ghastly corpse of the wife of my bosom. But may God shield and deliver me from the fangs of the archfiend. No sooner had the reverberation of my blows sunk into silence than I was answered by a voice from within the tomb. By a cry, by a cry, at first muffled and broken, like the sobbing of a child, and then quickly swelling into one loud and continuous scream, utterly analogous and inhuman, a howl, a wailing shriek, half of horror and half of triumph, such as might have arisen out of only hell, conjointly from the throats of the damned in their agony and of the demons that exult in the damnation. Of my own thoughts it is folly to speak. Swooning, I staggered to the opposite wall. For one instant, the party upon the stairs remained motionless through uh, through extremity of terror and of awe. In the next, a dozen stout arms were toiling at the wall. It fell bodily. The corpse, already greatly decayed and clotted with gore, stood erect before the eyes of the spectators. Upon its head, with red extended mouth and solitary eye of fire, sat the hideous beast whose craft had seduced me into murder and whose informing voice had consigned me to the hangman. I had walled up the monster within the tomb. But yeah, totally normal sequence of events. And he couldn't handle guilt when he got rid of them. So there we have it. Giving yourself away like a little bitch because you walled the cat up. That's just like, that's telling on yourself in a different kind of way. Again, with the, like, if you're going to commit murder, make sure you're not going to tell on yourself, either literally or spiritually. The telltale meow. I love that. But he does, he like keeps guilt almost as this like separate entity or the perverseness. It's like, that's what it is. I can't stop. I swear it's not me. It's the perverseness. It's the guilt. But I don't have guilt. I swear I don't have guilt. It's just this weird thing that's around in my chest that feels like guilt. Well, guys, it was what, yes, exactly. Let's see if we can find something short to switch this up. I know these ones are, where is it? Lenore is pretty short. To One in Paradise. Yeah. I'm glad you liked it. I hope you'll come again. We're doing Wednesdays. I think I'm going to keep it at 2 a day because daytime has a different crowd vibe than nighttime. The nighttime vibe gets a little, it's a bit more. There's the gang that want to call Poe the bitch boy. Oh, El Dorado. Is it on my? Oh, but you know what? I have another Poe book actually. Where is it? Or is that just?
No, that doesn't have it in it either. So yeah, maybe we'll do Morella. Actually, yeah, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do Morella. Or no, not Morella. Lenore. We will do Morella next time. $60. All right. Lenore. Yes. Fiona. I guess I forget about the lag, but I'm going to do another one tonight. That one's always going to be at 10 p.m. And then this daytime one, I'm just floating around at different times and seeing how it goes. Thank you, DP. All right. Lenore. Ah, broken is the golden bowl, the spirit flower, or spirit flown forever. Let the bell toll, a saintly soul floats the Stygian river. And Guy de Vere, hast thou no tear? Weep now or nevermore. See, on yon drear and rigid bier lows lie thy love, Lenore. Come, let the burial rite be read, the funeral song be sung, an anthem for the queenliest deed that's ever died so young, a dirge for her doubtly dead in that she died so young. Wretches! Ye loved her for her wealth and hated her for her pride, and when she fell in feeble health, ye blessed her that she died. How shall the ritual then be read? The requiem how be sung? By you, by yours, the evil eye, by yours, the slanderous tongue, that did to death the innocent, that died and died so young. Peccavimus, but rave not thus, and let a Sabbath song go up to God so solemnly, the dead may feel so wrong. The sweet Lenore hath gone before, with hope that flew beside, leaving thee for the dear child that should have been thy bride. For her, the fair and debonair, that now so lowly lies, that life upon her yellow hair, but not within her eyes. The life still there upon her hair, the death upon her eyes. Avaunt! Tonight my heart is light, no dirge I will uprise, but waft the angel on her flight with a paean of old days. Let no bell toll, lest her sweet soul, amid its hallowed mirth, should catch the note as it doth float up from the damned earth. To friends above, from friends below, the indignant ghost is riven from hell unto a high estate, far up within the heaven, from grief and groan to a golden throne beside the King of Heaven. Thank you, Mac. Yep, we're wrapping it up. That was Lenore. Digital Product Diaries. I'm so sorry you're at the end, but we're still going to draw you a card. And hopefully I will talk to you again soon, Mac. Ooh, you got a good one. Boundaries. Decline gracefully like a falling chandelier. Sparkle anyway. I feel like that one's pretty self-explanatory. Well, guys. Yes, you've got it. That's what they're there for. They're there to call you out and have some fun. I have it in a post, but you can get your own set of Begrudgingly Grateful cards. We have them digital and physical, and that's in the Begrudging Bazaar on our website. Well, hopefully not so exposed you don't return. But thank you guys for another fabulous Begrudging Book Club.
And hopefully, well, I know I won't see a dweller since time zones suck. But Fiona, Wendy will probably be in the nighttime one. That one's more her speed. All right, I will talk to you guys later. Stay begrudging.